everyone. It's Wednesday, July 27th, 2022 at 7:15 p.m. and I call the Committee of the Whole to order, and we'll start with the roll call.
Councilmember Moby?
Here.
Ellis?
Here.
Francie?
Here.
Gagan?
Here.
Cashman?
Here.
Lawrence?
Here.
Mackey?
Here.
Morrison?
Here.
Pericini?
Here.
Ross?
Here.
Shaw?
Here.
Taylor?
Here.
Mayor?
Here.
And tonight we do have a guest speaker that's joining us today on Zoom, Thomas Topher, and Thomas is from PFM Financial Advisors, and he has a presentation on debt considerations. Good evening, Thomas.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having me today. I'll share my screen to start a presentation here. Let me know if this is large enough for you to see. Is that, oh, well.
That's great.
Okay. So good evening again. I'm Thomas Topher. I'm a managing director with PFM Financial Advisors. We are the largest independent municipal advisory firm in the country with 30 offices nationwide, and I lead our Seattle office. In the state of Washington, we work with over 60 clients, really public entities, including 17 cities. The firm was founded over 45 years ago, and with really the objective of providing sound and financial advice to governmental and non-for-profit agencies, really focusing on that municipal sector. We had the pleasure to work with Finance Director Patricia Soul at the City of Oak Harbor previously. There we actually worked together on a financing for a wastewater treatment facility, and the city issued $25 million of utility revenue bonds back then. I'm here to really talk about the city's debt capacity, a bit about why cities typically use debt for certain larger capital projects. And I'll walk through those slides. If you like to ask questions along the way, that would work very well, or you can wait and I'll make sure to answer questions at the end. Going here to that first page, make sure you can see this. So we understand that an outside consultant discussed a hypothetical 6-year capital plan with City Council. This plan included a list of over 70 projects with a total estimated cost of over $300 million. So a number of these larger projects are listed here on the left. Hope you can see this all. Again, please let me know if I need to enlarge anything, make it bigger. As you can see, if you look at the purposes, those are primarily for public safety, tourism, transportation, and large amounts for flood control. While these projects haven't been approved by the council, they are just, really a list, perhaps a wish list of projects. We thought it might be helpful for you to see, the size of other cities with perhaps similar size and population. So we have provided here a little table to the right of cities that readily provide the adopted 6-year capital plan on their website, and you see here really the comparison that the $300 million figure is certainly larger than many of your peers, and that have perhaps a similar size and population. And one may argue some of them may have a larger tax and customer base even. Now, as you know, the key to a successful capital plan is a robust funding plan. And funding sources are typically distinguished between sources the city can control, and such as existing reserves, right, or really existing revenues that you could reallocate to those capital projects. You can generate new revenues via additional taxes or higher taxes, or increasing existing rates and charges. And then on the other hand, you have sources for these projects that are outside of your control, particularly federal or state funding, or even philanthropic dollars if you receive gifts for any of these projects. The majority of this hypothetical plan is actually dependent on state and federal funding. So clearly, if you were to receive those funds, it is, it allows you to move forward with those projects. Some of the projects, though, that I listed here are for police, fire, there's a gateway center and museum projects that will generally depend on city resources. So on the next slide, I'll focus a bit on the city's resources. So as you know, the city adopts a budget every year, a balanced budget. So it means that you're really allocating your revenues to fund the existing services, the services that the city currently provides to citizens, as well as to fund some minor capital projects. So in order to use these existing revenues for the capital projects, for any of the capital projects we saw earlier, you would generally have to reallocate funds from existing purposes to those purposes, or which in the current environment might be additionally more difficult, since really higher inflation has resulted in increased costs of supplies, increased costs of labor. So you already are, requiring to use some of the most of your funds for existing services. So just want to make that point here. We thought it was also helpful to summarize the available cash and investments of the city. You'll see here that the city has currently about $23 million available. That's inclusive of the $18 million from the insurance settlement. But it's important to note that, as you see here, that $16.5 million of that insurance proceeds have already been committed for projects. So that leaves only about $1.5 million of these available reserves for projects to undertake.
Excuse me, Thomas, may I ask a question?
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
Thank you. This is Councilmember Ellis. As we're looking at considerations for how to allocate funding to projects, would not a valid option also include creating public-private partnerships?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to make sure it's large enough here. So indeed, public-private partnerships are an interesting and important opportunity. I think the key here is always to note that, can this partnership be really a win-win situation for the city, right? And for the partner. And, if the partnership is simply, a reallocation of existing resources, it won't benefit the city. But if you are finding a partner that is really able to add either expertise or really is able to do, to raise funds that can be helpful for the city, that is certainly an additional fund source of resources here.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, and just see. I think one important point to also remember is, when we look at this with different cities, different institutions, we clearly want to understand how do you fund the capital cost of each of these projects, but we also want to make sure we don't forget about understanding any ongoing costs related to these projects, right? If they are funding a new facilities, how is the operating cost? How is the upkeep of the new facility being funded on an ongoing basis? Because that might be, taking away from existing resources. With that, I'll go into really the debt discussion. So we wanted to start looking at the legal capacity of debt that the city can issue that would be secured by the full faith and credit of the city. So the city can issue up to 2.5% of assessed value for voted debt for general municipal purposes. There's another 2.5% available for utility purposes and 2.5% for parks and open space. In each case, these unlimited tax general obligation bonds require 60% voter approval and at least 40% of voter turnout relative to the last gubernatorial election. So that's definitely a funding option, but it requires a lot of voter support. Now, so you see in this table, actually this is the 2.5%. Based on your assessed value, 2.5% represents currently about $33 million of legal capacity for general municipal purposes. The city council has also the option to issue councilmanic debt, so non-voted debt, and that is secured by the full faith and credit of the city, and the taxing power really of the city. And so that amount of debt is limited to 1.5% of the assessed value. You see that here that generally is 19.9 million currently, and that the city has currently $5 million outstanding in loans that were, at least based on the unaudited information, that appear to be secured by the full faith and credit of the city, and therefore would have to be deducted, leaving you with about 15 million of councilmanic debt capacity. I want to point out, it's one thing that's always important to understand, that this 1.5% is a portion of the overall 2.5%. So this is not in addition of each other. Okay. Now that we talked a bit about that legal capacity, I want to talk about affordability, but I wanted to make one more point, that I really focused here on debt that is, again, secured by the full faith and credit and taxing power of the city. Really, those are the type of debt that's typically used for the type of projects that we talked about earlier, police, fire stations, these type of projects. You do have other types of debt that the city can issue, like utility revenue bond debt. So your water or wastewater utility could issue debt to fund water or wastewater utility related projects that would be secured solely by those revenues from those utilities. And that would not be subject to this debt capacity that I mentioned earlier. It would simply be subject to the amount of what can those revenues from the utilities support, how much in debt service can those revenues support. Now going to take the next step here from legal capacity to affordability, right? We have a number of clients that have actually a very, very large amount of legal debt capacity. But the question at the end of the day is most important is what funds are available? How can this debt be repaid if you're issuing debt? So we put together just a very simple table to give you an idea of debt service estimates for different amounts. So just focusing briefly on this, a $10 million borrowing for projects. If you were to issue debt over 20 years, we would estimate annual payments of $775,000. So the question, obviously, at the city level would be, do you have enough resources available to perhaps existing resources that can be reallocated to make annual payments to this degree, or can you raise new revenues to make these payments, or it could be a combination of that. I think the other point that's important to make on this page is that debt issuance, clearly, a lot of cities are debt averse for good reason, because issuing debt, as you know, will result in additional interest payments. And just in this simple example here, you see how the to the total amount of payments is, increasing from the $10 million that you're using for the project to, $15.5 million of payments over this 20-year period. So it's clearly a higher cost to borrow. Now, why do cities still consider this as an option? There's a couple of, benefits. One is, obviously you can really advance, you can accelerate projects, right? Instead of saving for several years until you have the reserves to undertake the project, obviously borrowing will allow you to accelerate and deliver the project sooner to citizens. Now, there's also potentially an economic benefit, or certainly a economic benefit that might offset some of the interest costs. In the current environment, as you know, the construction costs seem to be increasing year over year, right? We have a number of clients who tell us, gosh, the project estimates are now 20% higher than they were last year. So if I had the chance to, accelerate a project and get it done, if those clients had done it last year, they would have saved 20% of the project cost, right? And which would have offset the interest cost here of the project. So there is a balance of understanding the cost of additional interest versus what is this project going to cost me if you wait several years. And lastly, a very important consideration is intergenerational equity. So it's the question like, who pays for the project, right? If you are funding a project, you want to really save for this project for the next 5 years, then citizens in these next 5 years are really paying for this project, but before the project is actually available to them, right? Versus with this debt financing, you could argue that if you fund let's say a street and it's going to be in use for 20 years, that street, taxpayers will pay over the 20 years that they're actually using that street, will pay for it. So that's what we consider when we talk about intergenerational equity. I have a lot of additional information about generally the bond market, about other forms of borrowing, as well as about important factors like credit rating that will impact the cost of borrowing. I wanted to just talk today about really comparing your current list of projects to what other cities are doing. I wanted to give you an idea of what is legally available if you were to pledge the full faith and credit of the city, and I wanted to provide some idea of what the cost of these projects may be if you were to debt finance those. With that, I'm just open for any questions.
I've got another follow-up for you, Councilmember Ellis. Aberdeen doesn't have a credit rating, and so are we able to secure bonding or other loans without a credit rating? And if so, do we pay a premium because we don't have a credit rating? And then I noticed that you said the city would have to pay something to get rated, and how much does that cost?
Right. Thank you. I'll scroll a little bit into this presentation related to credit ratings. Yes, so generally, if you want to issue debt to the public market and really benefit from really offering your bonds out to the public market, which means a lot of different investors, tax-exempt bond funds that can buy you this debt, and by going out to this public market, you have a lot of competition, which typically drives down the interest cost. Now, in order to access the public market, you would like to have a bond rating. A lot of the investors require a bond rating in order to purchase your bonds. The cost, there's a number of things related to cost. One is that the better your credit rating, just as the credit score it is, right? If you're trying to get a mortgage, the higher that rating, the lower the interest cost, the less risk the investors perceive in buying your bonds. So, if you were to present to the rating agencies, they would look at really taking a comprehensive look at the credit quality of the city. I have listed here a couple of those items they're looking at. They're looking at the local economy, the tax base, want to understand the financial condition of the city, what has been the track record to date, what are your reserves, understand the track record of your management team, as well as what are the existing obligations. So all of that would be something that would be discussed with a credit rating agency. If you don't have a rating right now, it would be to get an inaugural, so a first-time rating, and that can be achieved. That is one option, but there are other options to borrow these funds without a rating. One may be the state's local program. The state is assisting several smaller borrowers by issuing certificates of participation at the state level and then loaning you some of those proceeds. So, and they will do the state would do their own credit review of the city and decide whether they want to do this. But that would be a way where you don't directly have to get your own credit rating. Another option certainly are direct bank loans that you would, for example, go out with an RFP process and ask 20, 30 banks to bid on a loan that you are asking for and ask for the lowest interest rate. And these banks, you'll provide them with financial information, and these banks would individually review the city's credit quality and make lending decisions based on that. I may have not addressed that getting a rating does come with a cost. So you're depending on this really the size of the issuance. Each credit agency has a fee schedule. There'll be a initial fee, let's say $20,000-$30,000, depending on the size. And then there is an ongoing review fee every year that will be another $7,500 a year.
Aberdeen has an A- credit rating at this time. Their bond rating. Just thought I'd point that out.
Are there any other questions from the council? All right, Thomas, I'm not seeing anyone else with questions tonight, so thank you so much for joining us this evening and for providing all this information. It's been very helpful.
Thank you for having me, and if there are any additional questions later on, happy to provide additional information. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, moving on to our department head updates. Do we have any updates from department heads this evening? I see Director Barnum heading towards the podium. That mic on. Is the mic on over there?
Oh,
I believe so.
All right, thank you. So I have one item on the agenda tonight. I have the request for the council to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with West Coast Mechanical Solutions to replace the gas furnaces at the Log Pavilion. I don't know if you remember, but I think it was 2 months ago, maybe 3, I had brought another committee report to you with a bid that I had received for a little over $15,000. So I did some research on the electrical option. It was about $75,000. So I went back and sent out another request for bids. I used the MRSC roster and sent it out to 89 businesses and only received one bid from one responsive bidder for the $17,000. This is to replace the old heating system that's in the Log Pavilion. We've received a recommendation that the system needs replacement, so rather waiting until the system actually fails and doesn't work, I'm trying to be proactive and get that replaced. I did an updated budget for Fund 107, which would pay for this with the help of Director Soul. So we should have enough money in that fund to cover the expense for the furnace. The budget that was presented to you as a council at the end of last year was based on COVID, and fortunately now that most of the COVID restrictions have been lifted, we've seen a significant income for the pavilion, so that should cover the cost for this. And then at the next city council meeting, I plan to have the community event pole banner rules and policies on the agenda for you. I sent it to our legal staff for review, so I have an updated version of the program for you to review, so I'll get that email to you when I get back to the table, so you have a little time to go through that. Please do contact me if you have any questions or concerns. Councilman Ellis has already talked to me about a number of things, and I appreciate anybody getting in touch with me, getting in touch with me in advance, so I have some time to have answers for you if you have any questions. Oh, shoot, I clicked that a little too fast. I wanted to thank the Grace Harbor Community Foundation for, slide through this real quick. I wanted to thank the Grace Harbor Community Foundation. We received a small grant, and so we were able to replace a piece of playground equipment at Sandbend Park that had failed. So we've got a new seesaw, and we were able to add some new fall material. So I wanted to thank them publicly, because I appreciate all the support that the Grace Harbor Community Foundation gives the city, because every playground that we have in our park system was paid for through the Grace Harbor Community Foundation. So they're a great organization. Did council members have any questions about anything? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Director Barnum. Any other department head updates? Seeing none, the mayor's update, Mayor Shave.
Thank you. It's been a busy couple of weeks, or at least since the last council meeting, not including, not the regular council meeting. We had a special council meeting also. So it's real estate committee, 911 board, and I'll speak to that a little bit. 911 is struggling. They need, for a full roster, they need 20 dispatchers. They have 8. And out of the 8, there's, I think one of them is another month and a half or so is leaving as well. So it's a dire situation, brought up some emergency meetings. And we had just recently had another committee meeting of 911 board and other officials. We called it a brainstorming meeting to figure out what's it going to take to fix that. That's pretty serious. If we lose our ability to operate a 911 system, I don't know what kind of alternatives. So we're working real hard to find what it's going to take to fix that. What else did we do? Met with the new superintendent. It was a great meeting, nice guy, real easy to talk to and very friendly. And we work together real well because you know how I like to tell stories. So does he. What else? Oh, the parking lot lights over here on the corner by City Drug, the parking lot where the city owns half of that parking lot. One of the things that I've been looking toward is lighting up more areas of the downtown at night because, well, you can all imagine how that would benefit. So that parking lot, it turns out, had a light on each corner of it, and they were disconnected. So we went over there. Oh, and another problem was the fuse box was like shoulder height on the pole, and potentially very dangerous. It was broken into a couple of times. And I can only imagine if it was hot in there, I'm pretty sure it was, that they probably made connectors to charge their cell phones and things like that. So potentially dangerous, so I got the crews to go over there and move that fuse box out of reach and get the two lights on our side of the parking lot operating. So I'm gonna go by there after it gets dark and see if they're on. They should be. And then we checked out all the lights at the library and the library parking lot as well. Make sure everything's working over there. So if Public Works isn't busy enough already, I'm a thorn in their side. They see me coming, oh no, what you got for us now? So I'm trying to back off of some of this stuff so they can catch up. And one of the things that happened today was the railroad had a problem of some kind. We don't know what it is. It'd be nice if they would give us a heads up so we can respond accordingly. But they didn't. And so they blocked the entryways to the mall on the east side there for almost, I heard for 2 hours or a little more than 2 hours, but it was at least almost that much. And the problem is, when that happens, if you're driving over there to go to the mall, turn and go somewhere else for a time. Go get a coffee or something, and don't sit there and plug up the road, because it backed up clean almost to Hoquiam, and it was barely moving. It was clean over the South Side Bridge, and just barely getting the car through a light, you know, before the light changed again, because everybody was moving so slow. So, I mean, if that train's coming through there and you're going to the mall, just turn off and go somewhere else for 15, 20 minutes. In today's case, that wouldn't have been long enough, but you know, on a normal time, the train plugs that up for at least 15 minutes. So anyway, that was an issue today. Let's see what else I might have here. As you have all heard, I'm sure, the candidate that we had for picked for fire chief pulled back. He decided he was going to stay where he was, so he submitted a letter pulling out for the new job as Aberdeen fire chief. And I think that's all I'm going to talk about.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And council members, does anyone have committee reports to share tonight? Councilperson Ross.
I always have something to share, don't I?
You're on a lot of committees, yes.
So beginning with the RFA committee, we met on Thursday, July 14th via Zoom. And we did several changes in the members. We had to appoint new officers. So I am now the committee chair of the Regional Fire Authority, and Stephen Vogel from Hoquiam is the vice chair. And we took time to review each section of the proposal and noted changes adding the city of Cosmopolis to the plan. And staff will continue to work on other details of the proposal as we get ready to put it on the ballot, hopefully in February of 2023. Then on Monday, July 19th, the real estate committee met, and the mayor and staff will be putting together an RFP for real estate broker services to help staff navigate the purchase and disposition of properties for the city. And then we have discussed some other things that we'll be discussing in executive session later. And then finally, on Thursday, the 21st, via Zoom, I met the Council of Governments, and we approved the 2023 through 28 Transportation Improvement Plan and the 2022 Cost Allocation Plan Amendment. The federal EPA grants for the Brownsfield program will be opening up soon, and they plan to apply for their third round of funding. And COG is currently going through an audit. This will be a 4-year audit rather than the normal 2-year, because that got missed during the COVID years. And the stormwater rules are changing, which will have a huge impact on current and future projects. And they will be reaching out to all the local governments to help them navigate through those changes. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Other updates from council? Councilperson Bertini and then Shaw.
Okay. And this is for the new homeless committee. We met on July 19th and had a workshop. And we talked about our long-term goals and our short-term goals. And then our fantasy list. And mostly I think we should focus on our short-term goals, that we're trying to figure out a way to make a place for people to sleep at night. And this is what we've agreed that we need to do. And we have to find the right location. But we also need the help of the county and the other cities to work with us. It's not fair that just Aberdeen gets stuck with this tremendous bill, because it does cost us a lot of money in the long run. And so our next meeting, we will have Representative Jim Walsh will be there, and our county commissioner, Kevin Pine, and hopefully they will help us come to some kind of vision of where we need to be, and possibly where we could put this location for them to lay their heads at night. And that's our first goal. And then we do have a whole list of other goals, but that'll be our first priority. And that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilperson Shaw.
Thank you. I was able to attend the Flood Authority meeting last Thursday, and it should be good news, I hope, to hear that once again, the Flood Authority is supporting our levee and drainage projects for funding with the Chehalis Basin Authority. And one of the interesting parts of it that represents a change from the path we've been on is they're actually recommending that the Chehalis Basin Flood Authority recommend that purchase outright as soon as possible all the pumps that will be needed for our project, so that we can have uniformity of pumping across both cities, but also given the supply chain issues and inflation, we know what we're gonna do, let's just buy those now so that they're ready to put online when we need them. And so it is just really gratifying to see this project continue to move forward.
Thank you. Any other council members? Well, I will share that I was at the library advisory meeting last Friday, and they are still searching for a librarian to fill the Aberdeen library location, because Stephanie Reese received a promotion and she's now an area manager. And they're also working through a few facilities issues there with the city as well. And if there's no more outstanding committee reports, I will adjourn the committee of the whole and hand it over to the mayor.
Thank you. This is Mayor Shave. It's Wednesday, July 27th, 2022 at 7:55. And I call the Aberdeen City Council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Obi,
Here.
Your mic's,
Ellis,
Present.
Francie,
Here.
Gakin,
Here.
Cashman,
Here.
Lawrence,
Here.
Mackey,
Here.
Morrison,
Here.
Pericini,
Here.
Ross,
Here.
Shaw,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Mayor Shave.
Here. Thank you. Will Miss Violet Morrison lead us in the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mayor Shave, I move we approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
A second?
Thank you. Motion is made and seconded to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any discussion?
I have a correction.
Okay, Councilmember Ellis?
I'd like the minutes to reflect that council member, Taylor arrived after roll call.
Oh, it's not, it shows him as absent.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
So approval as corrected.
Okay, there's a second? Second. Motion is made and seconded to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as corrected. Any further discussion? Seeing none? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any additions or deletions? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comments on agenda items. Try to keep your comments to around 3 minutes.
I went down to a city hall yesterday.
Patty, you need to speak into the mic.
Oh, yeah, just, I went down to pick up, paper on the agenda for tonight, and I noticed there was a report from finance and community development recommending that the city council also authorize the mayor to sign a master lease agreement with a qualified applicant. So I inquired what was the master lease about, and I kept getting evasive answers. And finally, they went and got an answer and came back and told me whatever it isn't any master lease, it's just a lease that they're gonna make in case they need one. And so I wasn't satisfied with that answer. They told me to go up and talk to somebody, and I went up and talked to them, and we had the same discussion, and finally it came out that it was for the Gateway Center. And I thought, well, isn't that evasive? It would be, put out there what they're asking for. And then I found out that this is just when they needed to take it out of the council's hands and put it into another hand. Well, so the mayor makes the decision? No, the committee. Well, who is the committee? And I finally named off the people that I knew were on the committee. And that's who it is. Okay, so they would be making the decisions who's going to be the 501c3 and who they're going to lease for and everything else for the next 15 years plus 10, and we get $1 a year for that. So this was announced. I wanted to know how come nobody knew about this. Well, it was announced in the paper. She said it was in the Aberdeen World and some other paper that I couldn't find. But it was in the Aberdeen World, July 21st, the Daily World. Then it said on there that they had to RSVP no later than 5 p.m. July 25th to Bernie. Now that was July 25th, and there was a mandatory conference July 26th between 1 and 2 p.m. here at City Hall. And if you weren't at that mandatory conference and everything, you couldn't even apply for one of these options. Okay, well, it was already 2:30 and I missed it by half hour, not that I wasn't gonna do it. But, okay, so then they said that there will be the final dates in question posted for answers on August 4th. Then there's submissions to be a part of this, and we only have one right now, would be August 10th by 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. Okay, no other statements will not be accepted or reviewed if they are not in at that time. Okay, so we have from the 21st to the 25th for people to put a proposal together and know about what everybody wants for the Gateway Center. I had to ask for the information and ask where it was posted at. I'm sure each council member was aware of all the content from the Gateway Center Committee met June 1st in 2020, or at least till July 21st. Okay, I don't know if anybody knew about that or what is going on, but I think it's really undercutting that you plan something, you leave the name out of it, and it doesn't set well with me, and I don't think it sells well with a lot of the applicants. And I also question the fact there is a council member whose husband's very much involved in this, and I question why is she still attending the meetings and making decisions on it, and why is she still on the Gateway Committee and making decisions for that? And I would like some legal and counsel advice on that from the city, because I think that those questions need to be answered.
Okay. Anyone else?
That's my name, right? Debbie Hodgkin, I'm also in Ward 5. And I also had some concerns about the Gateway Center. It was my understanding that when the Gateway Center was voted on by the city council, and probably the majority of you were not on city council when it was originally voted on, but it was supposed to be for the Aberdeen Museum that burned down and then a visitor center, correct? You know, now it's become a project that's gonna house some 501c3s. And my understanding is we have 800 in this area, 501c3s. And I think Aberdeen is just kind of, they keep going in that direction where they're kind of leaning towards a lot of nonprofits. I would much rather see it be something that was able to be used by the entire city, that would benefit the entire population of Aberdeen. I think over $800,000 was spent purchasing land to build that visitor center and to replace the burnt down Aberdeen Museum. And it's a little, my understanding is now we don't have the money to construct it. Aberdeen doesn't have the money to construct it. We purchased the land, but now we have to get grants. And if we get grants, then it has to be a nonprofit in order for us to qualify for the grants. And that just seems really negligent as part of our city. You know, I feel like it's really poor planning. It was probably poor planning years ago when all this stuff was purchased. It's negligent because we don't have the money to build it. And some people might even consider it just a little bit corrupt. And that might sound kind of tough, but it seems corrupt to some people, and they've kind of shared that with me. It is disconcerting that the project is going to be out of your hands and the mayor's hands. It's going to be turned over to a committee that is unelected officials, and that's disconcerting because then you have no say. How much money, has anybody considered how much money it's going to cost to operate that Gateway Center? And could that money be used, you know, better for the entire city of Aberdeen in other ways, for repairs and lights and cameras? And there's a lot of things that Aberdeen needs more than another building for a 501c3, okay? I think the majority of our citizens in Aberdeen don't want this. You know, if it's an Aberdeen museum, wonderful. You know, I'm not even sure about a visitor center. Honestly, I don't think people want to stop here because there's a lot that we need to do to get people, you know, to want to stop here. But I think we would all love an Aberdeen museum. If we can't do it, we don't have the money to build it, we don't have the money, and I want you to consider that. Because I think the last thing we need is a bunch of money going into something that we're going to give to people for $1 a year. And it's going to cost us probably thousands to maintain that. And that's it.
Thank you, Steve Haywood, Ward 4. I think the money could be used much more wisely instead of spending it on a visitor center. Last month I was in Ashland, Oregon. They have a visitor center down there. I believe it's probably going to be, it's probably cost them more than this visitor center. And see, I was there in March. There were 2 people stopped. I was there in June, and I saw 4 people. So not very many people at that visitor center. Anyway, this town is falling apart, trash, all that. I believe that money could be used for a detox center, treatment center in Aberdeen. Have you looked outside lately? Probably not, because the windows are boarded up. So, think about that. There's a lot of stuff in this town that needs done. The streets are falling apart. I've been reporting probably in the last 2 years on Broadway, the water seeping up to the ground, getting worse and worse every day. So I think the money, you guys really need to think about it. Do we really need to waste money on a visitor center? Most people get their information from their cell phone. I know that's where I get my information when I'm traveling. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Tara Croft, Ward 4. And I just wanted to bring up the fact after seeing this financial disclosure of what the city situation is financially. The numbers look pretty big, over 310 million compared to our population and all these other towns and cities that we're comparable to. And yeah, it'd be nice if we don't get over our heads. Everyone knows it's good to be out of debt. Try to stay out of debt and try not to be addicted to grants. But it would be nice if we could have more transparency and see a financial statement, at least monthly, in these city council meetings. And I know the Ocean Shores is transparent with their financial statements, and it'd be nice if we could see what's going on too, and make sure that it's balanced every month and see where the money is being spent and what's coming in. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Finance Committee, Committee Chair Report, Councilmember Ellis.
Okey-dokey. Finance Committee met this evening earlier, and we talked about the items that are listed under reports. I do understand the concern that the way that the reports are stated. There is a report on our agenda for the Finance and Community Development Director, who recommends that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign a master lease agreement with a qualified applicant.
Point of order, don't we need to do payroll?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm lacking my usual script. So without Becca here, I'm following the agenda rather than the script that I tend to lean on. Thank you for the reminder. So I move we approve the accounts payable and
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to approve the expenditures and payroll. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, or roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Bobby,
Yes.
Ellis,
yes.
Francie,
Yes.
Gaten,
Yes.
Cashman.
Yes.
Lawrence. Mackey,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Pericini,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
And this was for accounts payable in the total amount of $357,781.15, and payroll in the total amount of $83,000
$438.25. Check numbers 25547 through 25559 and 78149 through 78276, and wires 1370 through 1372. And it was approved.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll get back on track here. So the first report is report from Finance and Community Development Director recommending that the City Council authorize mayor to sign the master lease agreement with a qualified applicant. I move we adopt this report.
I move that we table it.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move to suspend all activity in regard to the Gateway Center project until further notice.
Mayor Shea?
Excuse me, point of procedure. We need a second on these motions, and there hasn't been any second.
I second.
So you're seconding Casey's motion?
There was already a motion by Councilmember Ellis. So that would either need
But
to be seconded or,
it was dead for loss of second.
okay. So then we're on the next
Mayor-
one.
Mayor Shea, before the conversation continues, in keeping with my practice all along on this matter, I would like to recuse myself from any discussion or vote and leave the meeting at this time.
Thank you. We're pausing for Councilmember Shaw. So the original motion died for lack of second. There was not a second motion. It wasn't completed. The third motion was Councilmember Morrison's motion, and it was seconded. Is that correct? Any objections?
Can we can you restate what the motion was, so we're all on the same page?
I would like to move to suspend all activity in regard to the Gateway Center project until further notice.
I second it.
Okay, motion was made and seconded to suspend all activity on the Gateway project until further notice. Is there any discussion?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Ellis.
It would be unfortunate to suspend all activity, given the millions of dollars that have been invested in this project. And we have a contractor working on this project whose contract doesn't expire until the end of September. At least keeping it on the table allows work to go forward so that we can find out if it's financially viable or not. To put the kibosh on all activity would be most unfortunate, given the years of work and the amount of both state money and other investments that have been made in this project.
Councilmember Catchman.
I agree with the motion that was made, but I want to reiterate that this isn't, the project for me isn't a no right now, it's a not yet. I'm also a firm believer that this entire agreement should eventually be brought to council once we select an organization, and we shouldn't waive our ability to look at important contracts such as these. And tonight's presentation illustrates that we have so many critical projects that we need to get done in our city, and based on our tax rate, we can bond up to 28 million max, voter approved. And our public safety projects alone are over 73 million, and that's a $45 million deficit. So continuing to tie up the money in the Gateway project, a project that isn't critical, isn't fiscally responsible at this moment. I've heard from many that we can have it all. We can get grants, we can get federal and state earmarks, but until we have those true commitments, we can't rely on it. Public safety is the forefront of every livable city in this country. We currently lack the infrastructure to provide this to our citizens to the level they deserve and our frontline workers. Our former fire chiefs Our former Fire Chief Hubbard and Chief of Police Shoemate both implored us to get these projects moving. It's the responsibility of this council to set our capital priorities, and waiting on this at this moment is in the best interest of the city. So let's determine which projects will move forward and which need to wait, and come back to this in a little while.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
I
Roll call that?
would like to roll call that, please.
Councilmember Ellis,
Nay.
Councilmember Obi. Got out of order, sorry.
It's okay. Just for the record, this is an incredibly hard decision for me to make, and I apologize for whoever I offend. I'm gonna have to say yes.
Councilmember Francie,
No.
Councilmember Dakin,
Yes.
Councilmember Cashman,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawrence,
Yes.
Councilmember Mackey,
Yes.
Councilmember Morrison,
Yes.
Councilmember Pericini,
Yes.
Councilmember Ross,
No.
Councilmember Shaw, sorry, Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
There are 3 no, the rest yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Okay. Moving on to,
Second report.
thank you. Let's wait for Councilmember Shaw to come back in. You just told her? Okay, thank you.
So we just didn't decision that report officially. We took different action, right?
Yes, that report died.
Yep.
Okay,
All right, second report from Finance and Community Development Director recommending that the city council accept the recommended changes to ordinance number 6666 and pass the first reading. I move we adopt this report.
I second it.
motion was made and seconded for report 6666. Is there a, under discussion, do you have a report to explain what that is a little bit?
Oh, yes. The ordinance is, updates, the city's, purchase and disposition of surplus real property, adding a new chapter 3.110, purchase and disposition of surplus real property. There's a property committee that weighs in on decisions along with city staff on which property should be surplus. And when the committee last met, we decided to also add the ability of which parcels to purchase to the role of the committee. So this updates that and provides guidance on how the committee functions.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Councilmember Shaw.
Yes, just to clarify a little bit, on a couple of occasions, it's been assumed that the real estate committee, which we have taken to calling it, is going to help, with some property purchases and evaluations, and on further examination of the ordinance, it was clear that the committee deals with surplus properties. So this would just add the ability of the committee to consider for council recommendation either the surplus or purchase of properties. So that said, I also think that paragraph number 3 in the committee report should be amended to say that the ordinance is being amended to add the potential purchase of property, not just the disposition. That's an oversight or a typo or something, the report should be changed to say we're a third paragraph. So I would make a motion to amend the report to say that we are recommending a change to add the potential purchase of property to the ordinance.
Second.
Motion was made, seconded to amend the report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I'd like to propose an amendment to the ordinance.
Amendment to the ordinance we're talking about already, that we just amended?
We amend Council Member Shaw, we just vote on revising the way the report was stated. But now I'd like to propose that we amend the ordinance itself. There's two proposals I have.
Should we do that during ordinances?
Yes. Oh, okay, got it. I'll bring that up in just a second.
Next reading or, okay. Okay, all in favor of the, is there a motion to approve the report as amended?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion was made and seconded to approve the report as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted.
Okay, and our third report is a report from the Finance and Parks Director recommending that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with West Coast Mechanical Solutions to replace the twin gas furnaces at the Rotary Rock Pavilion for an amount not to exceed $17,023.03. I move we adopt this report.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to adopt this report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted.
Okay, then we have the first reading under ordinances of bill number 22-10, an ordinance relating to the purchase and disposition of surplus real property, adding a new chapter 3.110, purchase and disposition of surplus real property. I move we adopt this ordinance.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to approve the first reading of bill number 22-10. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. First reading has been approved.
And that's it from Finance Committee.
Thank you. Moving on to Public Works Committee Chair report from Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Committee chair report is short. I'll just reiterate for the record what I shared in our committee with the whole meeting is that our flood control projects continue to enjoy support and are moving forward to the Chehalis Basin Flood Authority for potential funding on schedule with a special focus on pumping capacity in order to take advantage of current rates. We don't have any public hearings tonight. Under reports and communications, we have three. We have a report from Public Works and the Public Works Director recommending that the City Council shall authorize the Mayor and the Public Works Director to sign FEMA Agreement 4650 DRWA for obtaining federal and state emergency and disaster assistance funds. I move to adopt this report.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to adopt this report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The report is adopted.
Item number 2, we have a report from Public Works and the Public Works Director recommending that the City Council shall pass a resolution supporting efforts of the cities of Aberdeen and Hoquiam in seeking funding for the Aberdeen-Hoquiam Flood Protection Project through the Grays Harbor County Distressed County Sales and Use Tax Grant Program. I move we adopt this report.
Second?
Motion was made and seconded. Am I missing on something on my agenda? I don't show that report.
Number 2.
I don't have a
Under
number
C.
2 on my page. Okay, well, if it's on there, then we're good. The motion was made and seconded to adopt this report. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a third report from Public Works and the Public Works Director recommending that the City Council authorize the mayor to amend the agreement with Murray Smith Incorporated for professional services related to the downtown Aberdeen revitalization traffic improvements, quote-unquote, Darty project. I move we approve this report.
Second?
Motion was made and seconded to approve this report. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Report is adopted.
Thank you. Under resolutions from Public Works, we have a resolution supporting efforts of the cities of Aberdeen and Hoquiam in seeking funding for the Aberdeen-Hoquiam Flood Protection Project, also known as North Shore Levy and the North Shore Levy West segment. I move we approve this resolution.
Second?
Motion was made and seconded to adopt the resolution. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's resolution 2022-11.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. That's everything from Public Works.
Okay, Public Safety Committee Chair Report, Councilmember Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Safety met this evening at 6:30 here at City Hall, and we don't have anything on the agenda, so I will just report from each department. So from the Aberdeen Fire Department, they participated in the 2022 Splash event on July 4th, and they had a setup for kids who were given an opportunity to go through a combat challenge course that ended at a hose to spray water on a prop. There were over 200 children participating, and it was a great opportunity to interact in a positive way and give fire safety education to the children and their families. And on Saturday, July 23rd, they also participated in the Grays Harbor Emergency Preparedness Expo. They again set up the combat course for the kids. Approximately 100 children went through the combat challenge course and received fire safety education. They also distributed file of life documents to parents and grandparents. And in partnership with the Aberdeen Police Explorers, the department was able to provide skateboard and bicycle helmets as part of the Aberdeen Police Department Bike Rodeo. The Aberdeen Police Explorers fitted and gave out 74 helmets. These helmets were purchased using funds from grants provided to the Aberdeen Fire Department by Twin Star Credit Union and the Washington State Association of Fire Chiefs. And also some upcoming employee appointments. Engineer Mitch Houston will be appointed to fill the Aberdeen Fire Department's Fire Service Specialist position upon the upcoming retirement of Fire Service Specialist Monica Myers, and firefighter Brian Peterson will be promoted to the position of engineer due to Mitch's appointment. And from the Aberdeen Police Department, Officer Renninger is officially halfway done with the training, and plans are he will graduate on October 6th. They also have a handful of applicants online for police officer candidates that they'll be putting on the list and start the written, physical, and oral board process. It generally takes a month to get the testing done, a month for backgrounds, and then 17 weeks at the training facility, followed by 13 weeks of field training. There's currently a 3-month waiting list to get into that training. The activity report for this last month, The total calls, 3,250, which averages 108 calls per day, and this is an increase of 11%. So things just keep getting busier and busier. This is the last call for National Night Out on Tuesday, August 2nd. Please contact Ross Lamke at APD if you would like your neighborhood to be included in their stops for the evening. They have 9 scheduled so far. And they are looking to expand the cameras around the facilities here at City Hall to get additional coverage in areas that are not covered. And as many of you noticed, we have several windows that were broken out this last week. And again, a reminder, non-emergency 911 call usage. We are encouraging people to not call 911 for non-emergency service requests that could be handled by our record specialists between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Our support specialists will handle some of the responsibility for our parking enforcement and animal control officers. And also, there's a citizens report online tool you can use if you want to. It's www.aberdeenwa.gov and scroll to the police department online reporting. And that is it for public safety this evening.
Thank you. Any special agenda items?
Yeah, we do have one special agenda item. I was going to ask Committee Chair Perrotini, did you want to share this one? Or do you want me to do it? Okay. You want me to do it? Okay. So first and only is a report from the Community Development Director and the Homeless Committee discussing goals and objectives for the unhoused population and recommending the City Council authorize the mayor to have an ordinance drafted that will discourage jurisdictions from relocating their unsheltered to Aberdeen. I move we accept this report.
Motion was made, seconded to accept this report. Is there any discussion? Under discussion, Councilmember Shaw.
I was just curious what discouragement looks like, but I'm, what the penalty is, but I'm gonna vote to move this forward because I'm not sure how I feel about spending our attorney's time on this, but let's see what she has to say and whether we can do it.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The report is adopted. And moving on to public comments on any item, anything.
I didn't see it on the agenda. I thought it was every week. Okay, I'm Thomas, Ward 5. I would just like to say, Councilmember Ellis said that, talked about the contract with Rock Properties and what we had into it. Well, I have a copy of all their services and everything they've done for the city and everything. And there's a termination agreement in here that the city may terminate the agreement at any time without cause by giving 10 days notice to the other in writing, and if it goes on more. So rest assured that it isn't, it's feasible, it can be done.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Steve Haywood, Ward 4. First, public safety councilperson for us. Probably I haven't called the non-emergency number in about 4 days. Every time I do, it says it can't call it. So I have to end up calling 911. Just wondering if that's another something to look at. Second, I really appreciate Chief Green. He says an officer is going to contact you, an officer is going to contact you. Thank you so much. Second, I think we really need something for children to do, young adults, kids under 21, kids even under 18. The museum where it used to sit, perfect spot for a center of some kind. Pool tables, badminton, whatever, indoor activities for children. This town really, really needs it. And again, I really hope this homeless committee, let's call it what it is. I hope they really buckle down and get something done. And I don't think it's wasting the attorney's time bringing something like that up. I don't think the attorney's there just to get grants for the city and nitpick at other little things. That's very important, but it is well worth the attorney's time to get that ordinance. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public on any subject, comment on anything?
I'll just make a quick one so you guys can go home, but I appreciate the fact that you guys are, giving Pete the okay to ask the other towns to keep their own folks. I feel like this has really been dropped on Aberdeen, and I am aware that we have the services, but that doesn't mean that we have to have everyone here. That's what Grace Harbor Transit is for, and it does cost the city Aberdeen a lot to have everybody here, and I think everyone needs to share the burden. So thanks for giving him permission to do that.
Okay. Do we have an executive session?
Do we need to do council?
Oh,
comment
council
first?
comment period. Sorry. Is there any council comment? Councilmember Ellis.
As we look at our finances and our debt capacity, I know this has been talked about before, but I think it's worth bringing up again, and just to plant the seed that between the cities of Cosmopolis, Aberdeen, and Hoquiam, we have a lot of duplicate services. 3 city halls, 3 sets of mayors, 3 sets of council members, 3 sets of department heads, 3 sets of other city buildings. And yet in reality, the 3 cities are also very interdependent. And as we've talked about, the city of Aberdeen tends to carry a disproportionate burden of some of services. And I think there's a lot of merit to looking at merging the 3 adjoining cities and maximizing the existing facilities that we have, the expertise that we have, rather than continuing to build up 3 separate budgets that involve a whole lot of money at the city level. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Anything else from council members? Councilmember Shaw.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that from my 2 cents in particular on I don't remember asking for the study we got tonight during our work study, but be that as it may, I think it was a little disingenuous to throw out the $300 million number when, if you've been following along at all, you know that the public works projects are a utility and they are not going to drain on the general fund. There is a plan in place to fund those capital improvements in our public works department. And it has been stated repeatedly that the levy project is one that we are pursuing without any additional tax burden to the citizens of Aberdeen. So if you really want to get a number on what our potential debt is going to be, we need to focus on the debt that might come to the general fund, because some of these other projects are being thrown out there like they're a huge burden on the taxpayers, when it's more than 90% possible that that's not going to be, other than maybe through rates that have already been built into as a stepped way to fund those.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Catchman.
I think that study was great. It was exactly what we needed to see, and if there's other things that are funded elsewhere, you can take those projects out of there in your mind, but there are still projects that the city needs to do that we don't have the ability to fund. If you take out the levy, if you take out, I think the library was listed in there, we all know how those are planned to be funded, but there is other stuff in there that is going to have to be prioritized.
Thank you. Councilmember Ross.
Well, and that brings up my question. When we went over the facility study a few months ago, we talked about taking that list and prioritizing it. And we've never done that. We've never gotten together and sat down and said, how does the council feel about this project and that project? So I calculated general fund money is about 87 million, which we still don't have, but what's probably gonna hit general fund out of all those projects is about $87 million. So that's just a rough calculation that I did today.
Thank you. Just because somebody in the middle of the night decided to throw rocks through the windows downstairs, what was it, almost $6,000? $5,000 to repair that. So this parts are on the way. As soon as they get there, we'll get them fixed. But meantime, ugly boards. Councilmember Ellis.
In response to Councilmember Ross, we had talked about that the finance committee would take the first go at prioritizing the list. And we've been waiting on information, in part the debt capacity that we've just got, and a few other in-house bits of information, but that's high on our list to look at.
Okay, I appreciate that, but I still thought council was gonna be given some input on that.
Oh,
That's what we talked about at the original workshop, that letting each council member prioritize. So I would like to have that opportunity.
Oh, please, yes.
We were talking about coming up with the priorities and then bringing it to council.
Okay.
To refine.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none?
I move we recess into executive session for 30 minutes. Action as a result of this session is anticipated. The purpose of the executive session is to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price.
Okay.
A second?
Motion was made, seconded to recess to executive session for 30 minutes. Yes. It's 8:42. So we'll be 30 minutes and back in session.
There is a separate Zoom link for the executive session.
So the number, like the number on top was what the council issue without anything voted. And the number at the bottom would be voted. But you can't add those two numbers together. Yeah, okay, so it is. That's what number and then this is what we could do. So if you do the 2.5, you need 60% approval. It's the super majority and 40% turnout. Yeah.
Oh.
Eye-opening, huh?
Yeah. Was there,
No, unfortunately, I don't have.
Depends on the topic, whether or not I
I can look it up, okay, sorry guys. Sorry.
And then she's like, oh, I'm gonna release the attorneys. I had to get that, I didn't say that.
Are you the one that decided to down?
Exactly. I should have said this. That is why we need an attorney here, so people like me can come and talk to her without going through you.
How was it when I said there was a council member? How was that?
Yeah, I did notice that Liz, again, we were talking, she's looking at writing. I don't know, I'm not saying, I got her to speak, but I was watching. I saw that. Sometimes in sports arenas, I will do this. I will do that. No, I.
She used to have her. Well, come on, let's off our flight.
That flag gives her the freedom to do that. Oh my God. Well, Liz really did tell her.
So she did that. So she would make sure her camera and when we're practicing, you know, the command.
She standing there, every time I turn around, she's
So she's filming you. Yes, so much, I hear her, she's like, you know, Liz, I'm like.
just ignore her.
How long was she talking to us? Like, when I went to the bathroom, I was like, no. Oh, we didn't want to talk about it, we wanted to go back this. But it's a fine, she was. It's like, you know, really coach. This girl, Liz went out. Well, I think she was blowing me up, you know, when we all got up to her top against it. And then when they voted it down. Oh, no, she brought it up to her, now I think she was getting nervous about it.
Debbie, Liz, and was it John who voted no?
No, Josh.
Josh voted no.
Terry.
I have to email her and say thank you.
Well, yes. She did.
She did. Some people are gonna go bash her for that. Yeah. Unbelievable. We gotta go up for grants, we gotta go up for grants.
I couldn't tell if she said yes or no. No, I said yes.
She said yes.
Just let you turn this one side. There was only two no's, huh? There's three. Liz. Josh. Nancy.
And Josh.
Oh, Debbie is the original.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, you're like this.
Yeah.
Debbie and Josh, same person. Same person.
And did you see those ladies go, they were pissed, stoned out.
How many stopped out?
Who was it? I just see this smell and
Why
another.
just, I don't want anybody to go in the back. Who else was there that stopped out?
Just the two ladies.
Okay, I know, this is Bobby right here.
She stopped out. Here's her.
Did you see it was a?
No, I heard her.
You should be going up. Well, they sat together all the time, getting involved, but then he never came in. But yeah, and then that was Bernie sitting there the whole time. And when I was showing you stuff, I was doing that on purpose because he didn't see it. And that's why I was talking, so he could hear what I was saying. what we might let you. And then I said, no, there's a termination clause. I'm going home. Yeah, I think he was really upset that, yeah. He is really a slime ball. He is really a slime ball. He turned around and he milked this city. He was supposed to get all this in place. He was supposed to put people in there. He's been doing this for 2 years and he's done nothing. All the expense of that was somebody else. All of that was done by somebody else. All the gravel in the building of Tesla and stuff is all in on this. It's all for it. That's all been done. It's, okay, come on. Just a minute, I'm trying to get, can I hear you? Yeah, I'm trying to get my ears. All right, I'm trying to see if they can. Exactly. No, they can't. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. Do you think that a lot of people probably signed off? The chambers is empty right now, we were just here. No, and that's true now. I'm gonna listen to all that because there was stuff in the mouth. Carolyn. Yes, I wonder who's on the screen on the media. If you can't now, can you move your screen and see who's on it? I can move my screen and see who is on it. To the left or to the right? Yeah, okay, I see what that is, but what I'm saying is the people that can hear me, there's 10 people that are, 10 participants on here. Now some of those were Deanne and Mel and Joshua Fancy and, they're one of the 10 participants. And then there was Rick Sager, and there was, Stacy and Lisa and Gary Johnson. And then, they were all. Yeah, well, whatever I said was just talking about them and how they have to discuss them. That's nice to know. Here I'm behind the wall here, I see they've got, treatment of the exercise. Microwave and refrigerator. Isn't that right? Well, I think one of the windows in the police station, courthouse was something like that. No, I'm gonna check. This is right. No. to the end of the contract here. I said that they can be released, with no reason or anything else for 10 days notice. So I said, you can be sure there would be no problem. Or with rock property. Yeah, well, let me tell you something, all this design that's been done, all this cement that's been pulled, the rocks, the line, the justice station, all of that was done before rock came on board. Rock came on board to promote this and get somebody in that building, and they've still yet to do. They still yet to do it in the gateway center. They were to come up with the funds, with the grant funds, and give, they can't get anybody to write grant for in there, that's why they got John Shaw last time. They can't get anybody to do it. They had hoped that they would have gotten, they were even trying to get the goodwill in there. Because they're grant holders, because they've got to get grant money from the taxpayers, and that's what it's from. They don't, you know, all of these companies now meet with Commerce and stuff and figure out how to snake money out of them and get to people they're making livings off. You know? It's disgusting. They've already gotten over to it. They've already gotten over to it. They've gotten to me. They're on contract too, Jen. Yeah. They've got a lot of this. They design all that package. Well, there was Coast Design was the last one, I think, that actually built this design. Let's see if there's any name on it. Or here, I think it was. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I didn't know he was involved in any of this. I remember, yeah, well, that, they didn't have any money on this. So they had, remember we had 3 different designs to pick from? 3 or 4 different designs were presented, to pick from. And the people all voted on it. Well, they've been doing this since 2014. What a great business. There. Yeah, it says 2014, we've been doing this and investing. It's just like, $55,000 to do a feasibility study on the bond and they could use it. Of course you can't use it. It's how people asbestos needs to be wired, remove everything. Why blow $55,000? But they do, and they do stuff like that all the time. I don't know. Oh, okay, there's 2. Okay, there's 2 John Matthews. One is city council. One is city council. I talked with the chief.
That's it, yeah.
But that's still great. It's good to see you. I think I can bring my granddaughter.
Big night. I'll make it there.
No, too far today. That's hard to say that.
We have 5 minutes
5 minutes?
before we can resume, yep. How is it that 30 minutes sometimes is?
I know. We have to go ask for extra time. How'd we manage that?
That seemed like about an hour.
Wow. So tomorrow morning, we start the interviews for city administrator.
Anybody local?
Yeah, couple of them. You gotta sit here.
Were we getting a new mayor there for a second?
Yeah, she thinks she's just a troublemaker.
I second that.
All in favor?
No, we have like 4 minutes left.
Oh, we aren't ready yet.
Until all of a sudden all this time passed. We can talk about anything, right?
Yeah,
National Night Out,
yeah.
That's a good thing to talk about. That's a great event.
where are all the events at?
Across the street from me this year, because I won't be here.
I have a
5:30.
question. Homeless, the homeless committee, do you all want to postpone that since it is on National Night Out?
We talked about that.
Jen Walsh has a very booked schedule, so.
Are you meeting that night?
Let me ask you, do you want to try to do it an hour earlier in person? Since we're all meeting in person, that's the whole.
Yeah, but you're gonna have a hard time with Walsh and Pine.
I just didn't know if we wanted to try, because I know you guys have, sometimes with especially with city elected officials, that might have a tendency to drag on longer than normal, and you got National Night Out, so it's fine, I just wanted to make sure.
I can certainly reach out to both of them and see if they're flexible in their schedule. I think Commissioner Pine would be more flexible. It was a bit of a struggle making sure Mr. Walsh could come, so.
Let
I'll
me
reach
know
out.
if you guys want to change.
Thank you.
And maybe he could join us via Zoom.
I had
That's all.
suggested that too. He was kind of adamant about in person, but yes. Oh, yeah, I'll touch base and let the committee know. After 3, I am free.
Five.
Someone can give the thumbs up when we can be.
I will.
We're at 28 minutes and 23 seconds.
So we got 90 seconds and we're allowed to reconvene.
I think so.
So I used to cook grilled burgers outside night out thing, and the police and fire departments would come roaring up to my house first thing. So they could get my cheeseburgers, actually Reese's double cheeseburgers, make it official.
I remember that place.
And I'd cook those, and they'd all come to my house first because they didn't want to be full when they got there.
Yeah, that's a challenge to balance, trying to be polite at each one, but after a couple, it's like, I can't anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had snow cones last year, they're really good up on like 6th Street.
Will APD be showing up at neighbor night out?
Yes.
Yeah, they
We try to
typically
go,
do.
we'll have somebody at every one of them.
Yeah.
And a.
My daughters, my daughter's doing.
Both the fire
night out,
department and the police department
And
typically
over
show up.
Cosmopolis, and she hires a band. She has a band, rock and roll band, composed of her and her friends.
Wow.
And they put on a big show last
I
year.
wanna
She's
go to
playing,
that
and we
one.
go this year.
Except I'm not gonna be in town.
Well, it worked real well in my neighborhood when we used to do it because all the neighbors contributed. And that's the idea. That's the whole idea.
Amy, as mayor, we're down to 3, 2, 1.
I move we reconvene.
I second.
Motion was made and seconded to reconvene. It is 9:14. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're reconvened.
Mayor Shave, I move we adjourn.
I second it.
Motion was made and seconded to adjourn. If there's no objection, we are adjourned.
Under 2 hours.
We did it.
Barely.
So I have to get up early and go to the radio.
Were you here last?